Welcome back to another episode of Straight Facts on the Football Terrace, joined by Big Steve, who's back from his many Man City travels recently. Been all around Europe watching these boys as they also progress through to the quarterfinals now of the FA Cup. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. A little bit tired, but no, I'm okay.
Absolutely, and it's been crazy. What is it? 5 or 6 away games in the last month or so for you lot?
6 aways, yeah. Spurs, Arsenal, Forest, Leipzig, Bournemouth, Bristol. So, listen, you got to respect it. There's a lot of Blues who've done them all, and it's mad. You just got to do it, though. The games come at you thick and fast, don't they?
They do, mate. And when you're in when you're in all the competitions, pretty much, there's even more games to come. So cannot complain. And you've got a big tie at home coming up in the Champions League. The league is just, last time we spoke, you just beaten Arsenal. You've dropped some points since then. Arsenal have the opportunity to go 5 points ahead tonight. We'll sort of be delving into that. We're going to take a little bit of a look at Ivan Toney and him pleading guilty to betting irregulations, or cheating, as some people are calling it. I don't quite know. We're going to take a look at that and what the ban should look like. I wanted to start, actually, though, by asking you about Man United, because we won at the weekend. We won a first trophy in a while, and I think me and you are always on the same wavelength around winning trophies is essentially, in the cold light of day, the only commodity that matters in this game. What was your thoughts on United's performance in that, and kind of the reaction of the world since, talking about United maybe doing quads, winning more, being back? Like, what's your take on that, mate?
It's more consistency for me, because when City was doing it, everyone frowned upon it. You should be doing it. The money you've spent, you should be winning Carabao Cups. It's not the same. It's a Mickey Mouse trophy. And then this week, they're talking about quads. Man United are back. This, that, and the other. And I just think, at least be consistent. I've got messages on my phone from Man United fans ripping me apart for winning the Carabao Cup 4 times on the trot. And then the same ones are ringing me up, asking me, can I get them Club Wembley tickets? And I've got 900 quid for a ticket. So, they need to be consistent. You know what I mean? They need to be consistent. You're either, a bit salty and saying, just admit it that you was gutted that City was winning these trophies. And listen, a trophy's a trophy. I've said it before on the Big Six. For the big teams to disrespect it, there's 90-odd other clubs in the Football League who give the right arm for a Carabao Cup. And you only had to see the scenes in Trafalgar Square for the Newcastle fans and the game and the atmosphere. The League Cup's a trophy. So a trophy's a trophy. I don't understand people frowning upon it, you know what I mean, at the end of the day. But listen, the last few years, United have been starved of it. They've spent a few quid. They brought Ronaldo back. Solskjaer ended it. His reign there. It's been a bit of a mess. So I think any Man United fan worth the salt is happy that they've got a trophy now. And you've got to build on it. It's always, good to get a trophy, but they've got to build on it now. And listen, Man United are one of the biggest teams in the world. And the money they've spent under the Glazers, they've underachieved. So they're not doing anything new. They're not inventing the wheel. They're just finally winning trophies like they've always done. So I don't get why people are blowing smoke up their arse all the time. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Look at the squad. Look at the players they've got. Fair play. They won the League Cup. So, to me, it's like, yeah, whatever. If we wasn't winning any trophies and they were winning trophies like back in the old day, I'd see me arse. But you're talking to a different animal here now. We are winning trophies, so it's good to have them back on board.
Do you know what I'd say to that, right? Firstly, there's a few things to unpack there. You're bang on about the consistency. The reason that I don't belittle any other club winning trophies is because I just don't, as a 37-year-old man with children who will one day see my content. My kids will get older, they'll see it. My boy Archie's approaching 9 years old. He's getting to an age soon. He's got a phone. He only has it a few hours a day. Eventually, like, things I say could be put in front of him at school. I'm not going to be a dickhead and say, what, Mickey Mouse Tin Pot trophy, it's crap. And then a year later, be celebrating like crazy when my team's winning it. I'm not going to risk my children being embarrassed of their father in that way. I'm just not going to do it. The second element is, listen, I agree. United should be winning trophies with the amount of money that the Glazers have hemorrhaged and wasted over the past few years. As a United fan, I'm celebrating the fact that we're winning them. I feel like the difference this time round, when Jose won the League Cup and the Europa League, we weren't doing that well in the league. We didn't look that good. And I think this United team is starting to play better, starting to compete, is moving in the right direction. And I think that's why United fans just feel that there's a different kind of feeling and a sense around the club that we're progressing in the right direction. So there's more happiness there. But overall, I'm enjoying seeing the bitterness from people. But the final point to what you said, I've seen less of it from City fans than any other fan base. And that's because City fans are, what's the word I would use, secure. You know, I'm one of these guys, if I'm out in a bar and a man tries to, oh, can I buy you a drink? Because he likes me. I'm not going to panic and throw a hissy fit and go crazy because I don't fancy men, because I'm very comfortable in my own sexuality. That's how I feel about this. If you're throwing your toys out the pram, panicking about Man United winning a League Cup, that tells me you don't really believe in your football club. That tells me, Liverpool fans that are doing it, that tells me that you think you might.
There's nothing Manchester United Football Club can do or win that I haven't seen before. So Manchester City fans don't care less, because we was on the bones of our arse in the pits of Division 2. They won the treble. So it doesn't get any fucking worse than that as a Man City fan, let me tell you. So the fact that we're above them in the league, the fact that we're the current Premier League champions, 4 out of 5, life's good on the blue side of Manchester right now. So we're not overly bothered what's going on the red side. So that's why you don't see the City fans really overdoing it, because, when we were down, they had the foot on our neck, proper tight, banners in the Stretford and the lot. So we've seen that. But now it is what it is. We're comfortable, like you say. We're doing our thing. They're doing their thing. Somewhere along the line, we're going to meet in the middle.
Mate, 100%. Listen, I get Chelsea fans and I get Liverpool fans being bitter about it. Spurs fans, definitely. We had George on Monday night who just said, like, we've got our eyes set on bigger things than the Carabao Cup. And it's just laughable. You've won 3 trophies since I've been born. Drop it now. The fan base that have kind of, it's not all of them. There's a percentage of them, Arsenal fans, who they're really angry that United have won a trophy. And I just sort of think to myself, what does that say about your confidence about where your club really is? There's some gooners out there that have said, well done, Arsenal, well done, United, congratulations, but look where we are. I kind of get that. That's like a compliment, but with a bit of a dig. And that's normal football banter, like you've just kind of done. You're not doing anything special, crack on. But the kind of trying to play it down, it's a crap. The same, I've seen some Arsenal fans who, a couple of years ago when they lost the final to you, I saw their rant videos, how disgusted they were not to win it. Monday, talking about how it's Tim Pot, they never want to win it, it doesn't really matter to them. I just think to myself, how insecure must you be about the actual position of your football club right now, to be kind of panicking like that? And as you say, for me, it's the smallest of the 4 trophies we could win this year. Happy to have won it. But in the words of Ten Hag, Monday morning, back to work training. We've got a big game tonight against West Ham to get to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, which is an even bigger trophy. And that's what we've got to focus on. And yeah, it's been an enjoyable few days seeing the tears, seeing the Newcastle fans celebrate that their fans got into the stadium earlier and were waving flags, and your club had to buy scarves because you guys don't own scarves. It's like, no, actually the club decided to make scarves because it was actually a PR stunt. So they could say we're not creating items that are like plastic based that are like bad for the environment. That's what the club's statement was. I'm like, yeah, you're celebrating because you were waving flags and we weren't. I mean, I love it. That's how I know my club's on the way to being back, when people are like throwing petty shit at us like that. And it's great to see as a United fan, but I want more now. We've got to, with the value of this squad, the quality of the manager, 1 League Cup, it's great. Well done. But as arrogant as this sounds, I want more. Next year, I want to win that Premier League title. I want to have a good chance next year of winning the Champions League, which we'll qualify for. And United fans have got to set the standards high, have the celebration, but then straight back to, right, we've got to go out and win other things now. I don't want none of this. We've won a trophy, and that's it. What is this? Terry says, Terry's waffling. It's banter. Yeah, bruv. When banter's dead and it's boring and it's not funny, it's not banter, bruv. Saying it's a Mickey Mouse trophy is a 20-year-old joke. It's done now, bruv. Like old sitcoms from the 80s are not funny anymore. Same difference, my brother. It's not banter when it isn't funny. Like, funny banter is when you say it, and when it's how you know when it's good banter. You say it about my club, but I still laugh because I'm like, that's a good one. When someone says Mickey Mouse Trophy, it's like, bruv, that joke's old. Honestly, it's dusty. Try something better. Terry, you don't even go to games. Callum, I know you're a Newcastle fan. I used to, my friend, but I made a pledge 5.5, 6 years ago to not give any money to the Manchester United until the Glazers are gone. I don't want to fund what they're doing. I don't, just like a lot of Newcastle fans who claim United fans are glory hunters, but about half of you stopped going to games under Mike Ashley because you refused to fund him anymore. Your stadium was half empty. You weren't selling out your stadium. Exactly the same difference. My belief, and I'm not trying to get into an argument, if you don't like how your club is being run and you think it's being run in a way that is detrimental to the history of your football club, funding it, in my opinion, is not supporting. It's enabling the bad behavior. So I stepped away, my friend. And I'm very proud of what I did. However, if people want to go to games, that is their personal choice. And I'm not going to call them out on that. Other than if they say they hate the Glazers, I do challenge that. But thank you for calling out that I don't go to games. But just like half the Newcastle fans who stopped going under Mike Ashley out of protest, I did exactly the same thing. Carl here says the Carabao Cup is only relevant because of social media. Don't know about that. Fans were going to those finals and celebrating before Twitter existed, Carl. I don't know where you got that one from, brother. I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that one means there, my bro. But yeah, definitely a good trophy to win. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy that we're scoring goals. I'm happy that we're doing well, and I'm happy that you're all bitter about it and you think it's only important because of Twitter. I don't know. I don't know what to say to that, Steve. What's your response?
It is what it is. Like you say, sometimes we can spend hours talking about irrelevant shit, like shit banter, like you said. It is what it is. You know, if you're a football fan and your team wins the Carabao Cup, you've had a great day out at Wembley. You'll never forget it, and you've won a trophy. If you're a bit salty and you think you should have won it, then that's down to you. And there's a lot of people online that talk that side of nonsense, but it is what it is. Listen, United needed a trophy. They needed one. Ten Hag's came in. He's galvanised the squad. He's I've said it before. I like the guy. I think he had a tough job on, but he came in. He's finally got the fans on side. He's finally got United as a club looking like a club like it used to be. And listen, it is what it is. You look back in a few years, and this probably be the start of something for them. So, you know, good luck to them.
Yeah. Why does it matter if you go to games? Listen, listen. There's a. I've always said this. I respect all fans from all around the world. Match-going fans are important. They are part of the atmosphere you get through watching it on television. Is the fans, and they deserve credit for that, because if they didn't put their personal money into it, which can stem into tens of thousands a season, we wouldn't get the viewing experience we get at home. TV companies have confirmed this, Kingsley, that the noise that the British crowds make is one of the reasons it's such a sellable product internationally. There's something about the noise, the way we chant, the consistent support, the limbs you get at goals that make the Premier League a far more sellable product than other leagues. I watched PSG recently scored two goals in the last 10 minutes of a game to win. Messi's goal went in, and it sounded like Soccer Aid. There was no real noise. There was no real excitement. And you sort of sit there and I'm like, no wonder that product doesn't sell outside of France, because it isn't as exciting. So listen, I don't think any one type of fan is better than another or loves their club more, but match-going fans have always had my respect, because they create the part of what you love is them being there without you even thinking about it. When there was no fans and it was that fake noise, we all hated it, right? So I respect match-going fans, but lots of people have reasons why they can't go. Money, out of protest. Some people live at the other side of the world and can't go to every single game. So I'll never ridicule people for it, but I definitely respect match-going fans. That's always been my take anyway. Here's a question for you. One for you. Super Chat says, Steve, who do you think's better, Erik ten Hag or Arteta?
It's hard to call. I mean, Eric's on his journey, Premier League journey, his first season. He's took over Man United, a lot of good players. He's won a trophy. Arteta took over Arsenal, won the FA Cup. He's on a title run. So I don't like to compare them, to be honest. I think they're both unique in their own way. Best up-and-coming coach. Obviously, style of football-wise, what he did at Ajax, Ten Hag's great. I think he was the best out there for United. And Arteta, you've got to give him his props, because could have lost his job many a time. he's turned that football club around. He's got everyone on side, and he's doing his thing. So they're both doing okay for me.
Yeah, I think it's one of those questions that you're going to get an answer to in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, I've seen United and Arsenal fans debating over whose rebuild is better, and it's just going to become a tiring argument. United will say, well, we might be getting back to it quicker in terms of challenging for titles, quicker, therefore it's better. Arsenal fans will say Arteta was a brand new manager, inherited a worse squad, therefore his is better. For me, you're going to know which rebuild's best and which manager's best in, say, 4 or 5 years' time with the one with the most amount of trophies. That's when I'm going to judge it in its entirety. I'm always going to pick Erik ten Hag because I'm a Man United fan, and there is a bias in that. But we'll see when it comes to the trophies in 4, 5, 6 years' time, who's won the most Prems, who's won the most Champions Leagues, most domestic trophies, and then you'll get your answers on that one, and it's going to be a fun one in the meantime. What's this here? Terry, don't act like United fans don't say the same thing about Tin Pot trophies when Arsenal won the FA Cup. Yeah, Adam, but if you've seen my other shows, I'll phrase it in exactly the same way I did with Lee Gunner yesterday. I'm not one of those pricks. I just don't do it. Like, I just find it dead. I think it's boring. It's terrible. If my son grows up, well, Dad, it's a Mickey Mouse Cup, my son's gonna get a slap. I'm going to be a son. Don't embarrass the family name by talking like that. Honestly, I find it such poor banter. It's unbelievable. And I don't mean it disrespectfully to anybody. I just mean it like, if I'm in a group chat and someone writes it, I'm just like, I feel disappointed. I don't even get angry. I feel disappointed. That's how it is for me, my bro. So yeah, you're right. But I'm not those United fans. I'm only accountable for what I say. So yeah, it's terrible banter. Football fans have got to move on from it, because it's a bit like City fans, the joke around no fans at the stadium. It's dead now. Joking about Spurs having no trophies. I've done it a few times this year, and I'm like, I'm bored of saying it now. Do you know what I mean? It's been done now. Think of a new joke. It's done. It's finished. It's over, as far as I'm concerned. But there we go. What isn't over yet, Steve, and I want to get your opinion on this, is Graham Potter. This week's been a crazy one because there's been so much talk this week from him comparing himself to Klopp and Arteta. There's talk that he's angry that he's got a 30-foot four-man squad. It's too big. All the excuses coming out. There's reports that the club are giving him 2 games to kind of save his job. Do you think he's a bit of a dead man walking, or do you get a feeling that they are going to see him through to the end of the season and give him that pre-season? Now, how do you see that one panning out?
It's tough. I mean, they employed him. He was doing well at Brighton. They got him in at Chelsea. Then all of a sudden, these signings coming out of nowhere. None of them are his signings. 1 or 2 maybe, but they just stinks alike. Hoarding players and stuff. And he's being asked to work miracles with them. But the harmony of the club looks all wrong. There's no system there. When they're struggling, they're looking for someone like him to come out and have a bit of something about him. The Chelsea fans, they're not the most patient bunch in the world. And I think he's on a road to nowhere. In an ideal world, he deserves a bit of time, you know what I mean? But I'm not a Chelsea fan, so I'm not going to disrespect him. If the majority of the Chelsea fans say we've seen enough and we want him out, then okay, go with it. But I do believe he is a good manager, and I do believe he will land somewhere and create something somewhere. But the way Chelsea are buying the players, and Mudryk and people like that, now that they're bantering them. Fernandez is getting bantered with calling him Enzo Zonzi or something the other day I seen.
Yeah, I see that.
It's getting a bit mad out there for Chelsea. And, I can't lie, the place looks a bit of a mess from top to bottom. But I don't know, they either put the tin hats on and back the manager and say, no, he's staying, so get behind him and try and ride it till pre-season, where he can filter out the ones he don't want and get a settled team and start putting his stamp on it. Or they make a knee-jerk reaction and they sack him and they're back to square one. Because I'm not being funny, if I'm a manager up and coming and I'm looking at that Chelsea squad and I'm looking at all them players, and the chairman keep buying players, I'm thinking, do I want to take that job? Because it's not settled. It could be carnage for the next man. So I don't know. You got to be careful what you wish for. And Chelsea, from the outside looking in at the minute, just looks like a bomb's gone off there, and I don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And by the way, Nzonzi, Enzo Zil, whatever everyone's calling him, that's good banter. It's fresh. It makes people laugh. In about 2 months, it'll be dead, so you drop it. But right now, that is what I call good banter. It's funny. It rolls off the tongue. I also think it's quite funny. I saw people posting like videos for the Backstreet Boys saying that they're for Mahala Mudrik. That's funny because he does look a little bit like one of the. Is it Nick Carter? I think it's his name, Nick Carter. Or one of them. Someone will probably correct me. I'm not a massive fan of the Backstreet Boys. I know a few of their songs from back in the day. That was me and you grew up. It's one of them ones, Steve. No boy our age would admit they know it, but if it comes on at a party, everyone knows the words. Everyone knows. But and by the way, I'm not the banter gatekeeper. I'm just telling you what isn't funny from my opinion. And just the same as move on now. Yeah, exactly. Leave it, brother. That is funny. But yeah, like I think he's a dead man walking for me. I look at the way they played football. I looked at them play. Southampton was the one for me where I just woke up and smelt the coffee and thought, there's no patterns. There's no energy. There isn't any work rate from this team, really. They're getting outplayed by a team that is bottom of the league and have actually had the double done against them this year by them. 35% of their points this season have come from Thomas Tuchel, who got sacked in September. Since November the 6th, Manchester United have scored 50 goals. Chelsea have scored 6. And I was thinking about this today, looking at the way they play football, the lack of movement, the lack of energy, the lack of system. And not only have Chelsea fans seen only 2 wins in 17 games, they've only seen their team since the beginning of November score 6 goals. When we think about people starving for these guys are beyond starving. They are malnourished. They are at death's door. Figuratively speaking, it's huge trouble. And I think for me, if they don't get rid of this guy, they don't just write off their season. It could seep into next year, especially if he's here for part of the preseason or all of the preseason. It's an absolute disaster what they have done, and I do feel a bit sorry for him. 34-man squad, but at the same time, this is where Graham Potter's got to grow a pair and say, listen, you 10, 11, 12 players, you are not going to play for the rest of the season. You're going to be training with the under 23s. I'm taking this 22, 23 group, and they're going to be my team. He needs to pick a core and stick with them for a handful of games. The way that they've registered players, Badiashile plays regularly in the Premier League, but couldn't be registered for the Champions League. How are you creating continuity at the back? It's unbelievably poor how bad they've done this. And it's getting to a point now where Chelsea fans are on streams. I saw Eunice and George Benson, two of the biggest Chelsea guys out there, smiling and talking about the idea of bringing Jose Mourinho back. They're like, bring him back. He'll fix us. He'll save us. This is a manager who most people agreed was beyond his best 2 to 3 years ago. But they're so hungry now. They're doing what a lot of people do. You know, when you have a bad month or so with your missus, and suddenly your ex might start seeming desirable again. All young men have been there. Not so much when you settle down with kids, but young men have definitely been there. That's what Chelsea are doing. So, Jose will come back and fix us. I don't think he will either. And I just look at them as a club, and I think I've got it totally wrong about Chelsea. I thought they were building something brilliant, that the owners knew what they were doing. But the fact they're just letting this guy continue to play out these games.
It puts that argument to bed as well, where everyone says anyone can build a team. He's thrown money at it. Well, they've thrown loads of money at it, and look at them. There's no team there. You know, it's all right assembling the best players in the world and all the promising players in the world, but they just look devoid of ideas. They just look like you said, no shape, no pattern. And then at the press conferences, they're wheeling him out, and he's a very calm guy, and he's not like, you know, when you're getting beat, you need someone to come out, the manager to come out and say something to get you going, and so make you think, you know what, yeah, he's going to bollock them in training this week, and we're going to give him a kick up the arse. But he doesn't. He comes out and he's very shy, and that's just his own way. But you know, I do feel for him. He's not a bad manager. He got the job on merit. There were other clubs around the world looking at him, thinking, you know, he's a decent up and coming manager, but he's chewing on something there at Chelsea. I just don't think he's ever going to win.
Exactly. And I saw a video today. It was a mock-up of Rory Jennings wanting Tuchel sacked. And then when they were linked to Graham Potter, talking about how Graham Potter's a top manager, he's going to be brilliant, I'm excited. And obviously now he's saying he's awful and he's got to get rid of him. But that's just part of the course. We all make predictions. We've all seen our club sign players or hire managers that we think are going to do well, and they don't. There's absolutely zero shame in it at all from my point of view. I thought he was going to do well. I believe that Chelsea were building something that was working. But the more I watch, the more I realize I was wrong. But you've got to call it out when you see it. And I think that Chelsea fans have got to get a little angrier. They've got to get a little noisier. They've got to demand more, especially the fans at the stadium, where Twitter's one thing. Twitter's noisy. But if Todd Boehly and the board are not going on Twitter and reading it, it actually counts for very little. It has to translate into that stadium where they are hearing it from the fans. And the fans have got to start to turn and listen. Don't do nothing crazy. Don't do nothing illegal. But they've got to make themselves heard in that way, because they're throwing away this season. Well, look, will they win if they sacked Potter today and hired Luis Enrique as an example? Would they win the Champions League? Probably not. Probably not. But who knows? They could have a good go. They could have a good run. They could create a buzz between now and the end of the season to get the players and the fans excited for next year. Have a good preseason. Sell 10, 12 players. Bring in maybe 1 or 2 more stars and have a really good go. We've seen how quickly things can be turned around. You know, this time last year, well, the end of last season, everyone's writing Arsenal off. They threw their chance away of top 4. They won't make it next year. Chelsea will be too strong. Liverpool will be too strong. United will be back. And look where Arsenal are right now. You know, you don't know how quickly things can turn around. But I think this kind of blind hope of, well, Arsenal stuck by Mikel Arteta, and Mikel Arteta has turned out all right. We should do the same. You've got to listen to what Mikel Arteta said today. I was 2 games away from being sacked. I had to beat Norwich and Burnley. There comes a point where Chelsea have got to turn around and say, you either win your next couple of games and start to turn it round, or you're gone, because this can't go on forever. And I think there's a lot of Chelsea fans kind of still burying their head in the sand, thinking this is going to be okay. It's crazy to me. But by the way, I don't think Jose is the right option. I don't know about you, but no. I don't think going back to Jose is right.
I don't know who the right option is. I mean, a lot of probably Chelsea fans are looking back at Jose and thinking, oh, it's a safe bet. We know what we get with him. You know what I mean? But nah, I don't know. And like you say, I think if I was an up-and-coming manager and my next move was going to be an important one and Chelsea come knocking, you know, I'd have to think hard about it, because it looks a mess from the outside. So I'd be thinking maybe swerve this and get something a little bit safer. But I don't know who's going to go there. They sack him. Who's going to go there? You know what I mean? Enrique, he won't go there, I don't think. He needs certain players to play a certain system. And looking at the Chelsea players that they've brought in, don't think they've got it.
Yeah, it is a hard one. I think that this is a lot of fans say, well, why sack him? We don't know who we should be bringing in. My response is, yeah, that's fine. But again, as a fan, even if you're a content creator, a professional TV pundit, it isn't your job to know exactly who the club should bring in. That's what your board is there for. And, you should be putting that pressure on your board to go out there and get the right person. A lot of Man United fans wanted Mauricio Pochettino over Erik ten Hag, but thankfully the board sort of saw through that and did the right thing and brought the right guy in. It's not about what fans want per se. It's about the board knowing what it is they're meant to be doing. This here says, you can tell the difference. Can you tell me the difference between Bowley's consortium and Fahad Mashari's Everton when you look into it? The same situation emerging at Chelsea, but at a different stage of ownership. I think it's a fair point. I mean, right now it looks an absolute mess. They have brought in people with good reputations of running football clubs. That's what I'd say maybe the difference is in terms of my knowledge on this subject matter. But they've got to start turning around some results soon, because if they lose the fans, they'll lose the players. The players will see what's being said. And if these young players lose hope, the biggest problem they've got is all these 7-8 year deals, Steve. Because if these players start to all regress and look bad, no one's buying them for the wages they're on.
No. They've had that back in the day with Winston Bogarde, who never kicked a ball and just sat on his contract. It's a dangerous game to play. Yeah, they get round FFP, stretching the contracts out. That's great when it all goes to plan and you're confident of a player. But some of these players don't even look like the players we've been led to believe they are. You know what I mean? If they can't get a tune in this Chelsea team now with them superstars around them against bottom of the league, it's looking bad, man. But it's looking bad. But listen, me and the Gremlins have got a nice relationship. When we got beat again in Porto, the Gremlins was all over me for days, weeks, months. They've all disappeared now. You know, there's a lot of message retracted in my inbox and stuff. But it is what it is. Life comes at you fast, and Chelsea's depressing. I don't even want to talk about it anymore, Terry. I'm depressed now.
Sorry to kill your vibe, bro. I'm sorry to kill the vibe. But yeah, I'm feeling. Do you know what it is for me? I like laughing at teams when they lose, but they does get a point where I'm like, I just feel bad now. I almost feel bad, like looking at how terrible they are. It almost becomes like I can't laugh anymore. You know, it's crazy. Adam Lowe here says Potter at Chelsea is like a nun using a vibrator. It sounds great, but it probably shouldn't be there. Wow. Yeah. That's a terrible mental picture now. I'm just thinking about Sister Act and vibrators. I'm going to stop right away on that one. Josh says, I'm so scared of Chelsea's videos. I'm scared of Chelsea's videos were a waste. Listen, I thought Chelsea were building something that was going to be. I still think there's hope for Chelsea that they could build something in the medium to long term that is brilliant. They could be scary. They could be doing things well. But, you know, we get some things right. We get some things wrong, Joshua Jack. And I'm sure you have as well. And like I've always said to all the football terrace community, I'm a big enough man to say when I get a prediction wrong. Equally, people have got to stop being obsessed with being right. Being right doesn't make you successful on social media or not. If you look at the biggest people out there that are doing bits, got loads wrong. Stop obsessing over it. Trust me, it's nonsensical. This from Zach Holiday says, "Love you, Big Steve." What does CTWD mean?
City till we die. Awoo. The new song that the City fans are singing, and it's got that lyric in it. Awoo, awoo. I'm not singing it.
But I'm going to ask you to sing it for us, Steve.
but yeah, so that's what he's saying.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way, we did actually have your guy, Traps. He came on the United show last week. He's good. I like him. We said we're going to get him on more. We were in the studio for the final, so we didn't do calls. But yeah, he was really good, man. He was just good vibes, nice guy, knows his football. I like people like that. So yeah.
He's in my DMs every day, voice notes, all that. But, you know, he won't tell you who got him his tickets for the final. You know what I mean? Who helped out one of these Reds, you know? People calling Big Steve for hating Man United, but sorted these Reds the final tickets out and that, giving him his day to remember. So, big up Trap.
This here says, since when has there been a bad trophy to win? As for man like Traps, there hasn't, brother. You know there hasn't, brother. I didn't even know that was his star super chat coming up, but there we go. Thank you, Traps. Todd Bowley equals Ed Woodward. Don't you see the parallels, Terry? Yeah, listen, I'm seeing some Woodward and Moyes parallels with this Chelsea team right now. The good thing Chelsea have got in their favor is they can nip it in the bud now and change it. You know, United kept Woodward for the better part of a decade, and it's crazy how he went. New people came in. They've handed the reins over to football people, and United have got back to winning trophies almost instantly. You can change it very quickly. You truly, truly can. To be fair, no one saw this Chelsea drop-off coming. Nobody did. And that's the thing about the predictions. No one predicted it. Otherwise, you'd see people going, I told you this was happening in the summer. People thought they'd drop off, but no one thought mid-table, 2 wins in 17, 6 goals since November. No one predicted that. You're absolutely right. Moving on from Chelsea, though, Steve. Obviously, slight turnaround recently for City. Last couple of games looking more solid, scoring goals. Phil Foden's looked like shit hot again. He's looking really, really good. How are you feeling now? How are you feeling about City's chances now towards the end of the season? Because I know you've kind of been a little kind of not harsh, but you've been very honest about Chelsea, thinking, about City, that you've not been at your best. You're not sure if you can win the league. How are you feeling now after the last couple of wins?
Well, I always said I get a feel in me. You know, I've watched this team for so many years. I get a feeling. I know when they're at it. I know when they're not at it. I know when everyone's pulling in the right direction. I get this feeling. And first couple of shows I did with you, I said to you, it's not there. I said we continue to take 2 steps forward and 3 back, 3 forward, 2 back, and we just seem to be, huffing and puffing and not putting a vicious run together or seeing teams off. And it's like we came back off the Arsenal win, but we lost to Spurs. Then we go to the Emirates and win the game we all wanted to win. And then we go and drop points at Forest. So, we won at Bournemouth and we've won last night. So the only thing I can say is these 6 away games have been tough, but the fans are, there's a bit of optimism about him now. Now we're finally seeing him start to play, Foden, starting to play a flat back four sometimes. I know Rico's been playing in that inverted fullback last couple of games, but we're starting to create a little bit more. We're starting to throw a few more crosses in the box. We're starting to get Haaland more involved. So listen, for me, it's a positive and it's a big improvement of where we was. And Manchester City are known for getting things going in the business end of the season. We've said it before. It's all right talking about us around Christmas time and stuff like that and after the World Cup. Means shit. As long as we're there or thereabouts in the last 10 games and we can crank that screw, then we know how to do it. And I've got a feeling that the songs that they're singing, is the lyrics of something's happening. And I get a feeling something's happening. So I hope I'm right.
When you drop points to Forest, I mean, I was shocked. I watched the game. I was watching it live. I couldn't believe the chances you missed. Conceding that late equaliser, open that door back for Arsenal. I think tonight's really significant, though. With Arsenal playing, kicking off in what, sort of 3 hours time against Everton. They win that, which they're highly likely to, being at home to Everton that are struggling. That 5 points clear. It's going to make and how many games will there be remaining after that point? I'm just going to check now. That'll be 24 games played for 25 for you, 25 for them. So with 13 games left, there's likely to be a 5-point deficit between the two teams. It's gonna be enthralling. I feel like Arsenal, and I was listening to the overlap earlier today, and Boovy said something where Arsenal may have been the best team this season so far, but we know how to win titles. And in that run, in those last 8 games, maybe that's where Arsenal's inexperience and nerves will kick in. They'll drop points. And even if they've been better than us for the majority of the season, we're going to get it done in the business end. And do you feel kind of confident that if Arsenal have that 5-point lead over you, that you'll be able to get that 6-point swing back?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone up against better teams than Arsenal, relentless teams than Arsenal. We've been chasing people down before we've got there. Someone might say, yeah, well, your luck might run out this season. It may well do, because we've not been as clinical, but we know what to do. Pep knows what to do, and then players know what to do. They know when it's time to start, knuckling down. And last year we limped over the line. The fixtures came thick and fast. Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, FA Cup semi-final. We're still in a title hunt. So, we got there in the end. But if anyone can do it, Man City can do it. And like you say, I think there's a little bit of momentum building. We've just got to make sure we get the 3 points against Newcastle on Saturday. And then we've got Crystal Palace the week after, which is, it's never a good place for anyone to go to Palace. So if we can get 6 points out of the next 2 games, it's definitely on.
Look, it's going to be an intriguing one. It's going to be an intriguing one indeed in terms of the run-in. I think I'm still backing Arsenal. I've predicted them to win it. I still think they've got enough to win it. But I'm also not stupid and naive enough to think that City, you can completely write City off. If City win it, am I going to sit there and be like, I can't believe it? They won the league. No, you're too experienced. You're very, very good. You've got the best manager in the world. One of the best managers that's ever lived is there. And I think that there's been a lot of stick at Pep Guardiola recently in relation to he's got to win the Champions League to prove he's a great manager. He's already a great manager. He's won the damn thing twice. This nonsense that he's only won it with Lionel Messi is ridiculous. Fergie's not a great manager because he only won it with Ryan Giggs. It doesn't make any sense.
That comes under the bracket of shit banter that you mentioned before.
Yeah.
We've had that since Pep came, and it is probably shit banter. And like you say, you speak to anyone in the game, you know what Pep's about. And do you know what Pep did last night, to be fair to him? He came over to the away end and he started at one end of the section. We had the full end behind the net, and he walked right along the advertising hoardings at the front, and he clapped every single supporter, and he was saying, thank you, thank you. And I know that doesn't mean a lot to people, but when you're traveling planes, trains, automobiles, ship taxis, boats and everything to get there, and your manager takes a bit of time to come over and appreciate the fans at the end, we've got that connection with Pep, and he appreciates them supporters, you know what I mean? Tuesday night, Bristol, M6 was shut. It was a nightmare. And he walked along there and he said, thank you, because he knows And I think he knows something's happening now. He seemed to be getting his mojo back himself. He's been on form in the press conferences this week, having a couple of sly digs here and there. And like you say, he's the best manager in the world for a reason. He gets shit done.
He does. And look, my take on not winning the Champions League at City has always been, again, you said about winning trophies decides who the best players are. I very much agree with that generally. Equally, when I think about the greatest ever teams of all time, I believe that winning Champions Leagues is part of that. So when I've had conversations, I think this is one of the best Premier League teams that's ever existed. But I don't put it above Premier League teams that have won multiple Prems and domestic trophies and won Champions Leagues. It's in the ballpark, but I put those above because they've won an additional big trophy. So that's all I've ever really said about Pep, that if this City team win the Champions League in the midst of everything else they've won, they're in that debate, and arguably with their records domestically, you could potentially say the greatest English team of all side. But I think they need that trophy, and that's all I've ever said about Pep. But I agree with you. People just throw that dead banter in that he did. The checkbook manager one's the biggest one for me. It's like he's not. There's
a lot of kids knocking about on Twitter.
Yeah,
there's a lot of kids knocking about in the comments here because just said he's on form in the press conference, and someone just put, "How can you be on form in a press conference?" So. It's like smashing your head against a brick wall sometimes with people, isn't it? Yeah. But it is what it is, man. But
yeah, no, of course you can be on form. You're on form when you're triggering rivals. Our manager did it before the Carabao Cup final. Ten Hag did it brilliantly. When he spoke about Newcastle being annoying and it being boring, I was sitting there going, "Oh, good, you're going to entice them out. You're going to make them attack." We're too tired to try and dominate a game at the minute. We've had too many matches. I think we've played on about 6 more than anybody else in the Premier League at that time. We've got a counter at the moment, and he did it perfectly. And Newcastle fell into the trap. People keep saying, "Oh, the best way to beat Man United is to go low block." Well, stop attacking us and pressing us then. Everyone keeps falling for the manager's tricks. That's being on form. But yeah, as you say, kids, Pep is the GOAT. Revolutionized football. Look, again, he has, but then calling him, he hasn't. He has in his way, but Pep couldn't have done to football what he did if people like Arsene Wenger hadn't helped change the diets. Wenger would have been able to change the diets of footballers if Fergie hadn't removed the drinking culture from football. Do you know who the first manager was in European football to bring in data science, sports science?
Sam Allardyce.
Bang on. I didn't know that. I interviewed him and he told me. He said he had it at Bolton before anyone else in the Prem. And big managers.
I read his book, and he was. There's been a few surprises. I mean, Joe Mercer at Man City back in the 60s. You read some of the stuff he was coming out with then, and people were like, "Wow, he was too far ahead." But I think these managers have got to evolve. You look at Alex Ferguson, to hit every team hungry, and to keep every team refreshed, and to go again and not get complacent. That takes some doing. It's the same with Pep. To keep the teams refreshed, to keep the players hungry, to keep arriving at the end of the season competing for trophies, it takes a lot of doing. Nobody can just turn up with a checkbook and say, "Oh, well, I'll just buy him." It's not championship manager. It's day-to-day. The chef, the fitness coach, the physios, the people. It's everything. And like you say, when you listen to football people and you listen to proper people in and around football, they'll always give Arsene Wenger his flowers. They'll always give Mourinho his flowers, Pep his flowers, and give Alex Ferguson his flowers. It's because if you watch football, you know how hard and draining and mentally sharp you've got to be to keep a team of egos in the modern game competing at the top level. There's a reason why these managers stand out, and there's a reason why not everyone's doing it, because they're cut from a different cloth. And for every genius manager, they always have the flaws. And Pep's flaws has been well known. He overtinkers sometimes in big games, but there's plenty of small games where he tinkers and gets it right. It's very fine margins. And like you say, he'll be the greatest manager Manchester City's ever had. Fact. So nobody's judging them on Champions League in Manchester.
No, and I agree, and that's because of where you've been at and where you come from. And I think maybe I have a Man United perspective because our two greatest managers won Champions League. So for me, I already look at Ten Hag, and Ten Hag's started great. I'm in love with him as a manager, but for him to even go into a great category He's got to win back-to-back league titles in a Champions League as a bare minimum to even enter the conversation, because both the other two did that. And it's a case of, the standards, for any new manager that replaces Pep to get anywhere near Pep, they've got to do similarly or more to him. And that's the standards this thing go. But I don't like the criticism of Pep. I think it's, again, I just look at it as much as I'm a United fan and I should attack City and try and put them down where I can, I just think some things, like, people try and say you lose credibility in our game if you predict something and it goes wrong. I don't think you do. I think you lose credibility when you make up bullshit, in the sense of sitting there and saying Pep Guardiola is an overrated manager because he's only won the Premier League with Messi. That'll get you a lot of views on TikTok. It'll get a lot of interactions on Twitter. But everybody's kind of like, you're a jester. They're laughing kind of at you for saying something stupid, as opposed to, maybe, bringing up a really good debate, a debate point. And I think for me, like, I just can't do that stuff. Someone here says, Johan Cruyff started what Pep continued. Well, that's cool.
That.
Yeah, but this is like anything, isn't it? There are every generation. Music's a great example of this. Every generation has its new superstar, but there was someone that inspired them. So there's always there's an origin story. You get all the. I remember when I was younger and people would say things like Usher and the like were better than Michael Jackson. I was like, yeah, but they're not. But then if you listen to people that, like, when Michael Jackson came through, listen to who inspired him, the James Browns of this world. Without James Brown, there wouldn't be a Michael Jackson. There's always a continuation. And that's why I try to not compare eras. Does that make sense? And that's the thing when people do Jose and Pep. Sorry, they do Pep and Fergie. Although they overlap very briefly at the end of their careers, it was one of those things where I kind of feel like with in that comparison, Pep was coming through, was brilliant right at the end of Fergie's career. Fergie had sort of no time left to sort of try and take him on, like he did with Jose, and then he beat Jose. He got Jose out of England. He beat him. He didn't have the time. You get that in boxing sometimes. I know you're a fight fan where there just comes and I know you're good friends with Tyson Fury, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, in my opinion. There'll come a point where he's of a certain age where there's someone younger who may not have been better than him at his peak, but he just won't be able to beat at a certain point. Does that make sense? And that's why fighters have to know when to retire. I was heartbroken when Ricky Hatton came out of retirement and got beat by that average guy who would never have got near him in his pomp. Does that make sense? And by the way, I'm not comparing and saying that Pep was average, but that's why I don't like to compare eras. I generally compare achievements in terms of trophies won, records, and everything else, because that's more comparable, because it depends when you come up against each other. But yeah, the disrespect that Pep gets, I just find it embarrassing.
He knows, though. He said no matter what he does, there'll always be something. If Manchester City had done what Liverpool have done, if we'd have won one European Cup, one Premier League, a Carabao, and an FA Cup, they'd be ripping Pep Guardiola apart, saying he hasn't done enough in English football. But if Jurgen Klopp had done what Pep's done, the Premier Leagues, the FA Cup, the League Cups, Centurion season, formidable season, they'd be building a statue of Jurgen Klopp outside Anfield. So that's the difference. But it is what it is. Pep's not about praise. He knows what he's done. He knows where he's standing is in the game. I know where he's standing is in the game. People might have a different opinion of it, but somebody put a super chat in before saying it's good to see Steve giving Alex Ferguson respect. Alex Ferguson ruined my childhood because he destroyed us, and he was like Darth Vader. You know what I mean? You used to look at him and think, fucking hell, when's he gonna fuck off? But when you get older, you respect it, because you look at him and think, yeah, he's fucking next level, man. Next level. What he did at Man United, you've got to respect it. And these United fans of a certain age who respect Pep Guardiola, they do. Because Pep Guardiola, there's a few young United fans now that are suffering under Pep. But, when they get older, they'll say fair play to Pep. You know what I mean? He was doing it well. It's just things come round in big circles. And Alex Ferguson, Pep, all them, they deserve the respect. Anyone that's not going to give respect and talk nonsense I don't even listen to them, to be honest.
No, listen, I totally get it. And I think there's some fair things to challenge if you're talking about debating the best City versus the best United teams in the Premier Era. Then I think that's when you start to nitpick and go in on some of the big game performances, not winning Champions Leagues. As an example, United currently having done a 3-peat and you guys have not. Yourselves doing Centurions and domestic trebles that United haven't done. Those are fair things to throw into the kind of debate, and then you nitpick a little bit. But I feel like you're not a great manager because you haven't won a trophy without Messi being in it. Does that mean Messi's not a great footballer because he's not won a Champions League without Xavi and Iniesta? Like you can use the problem is with that logic. It means you could find a way of discrediting anybody. You know, we had an Arsenal fan that came on the show Monday who started off by discrediting United by saying, "You're Rashford FC, Rashford's carrying you. Without Rashford, you wouldn't be achieving anything." And then when the conversation moved on to, how good is Rashford right now? He said Rashford isn't really that good. He's being carried by the world-class players around him.
Don't make sense.
And I was sitting there like, see, this is my point. Like most of the people that put out these massive takes online, you get them on a long format show, they drown. They drown because someone's challenging their opinions and they're not just being put out there for comedic effect. And it's crazy. This says, Terry, you just discredited other managers by overpraising Guardiola. Well, you need to explain that to me because I certainly didn't. I've not said any manager's bad. I haven't even mentioned any other managers' names in a disrespectful way.
They said Pep Guardiola couldn't come to the Premier League and put his style of football on it because he'll get this and he'll get that. Some pundits out there, Stan Collymore for one, he was one of them mouthing it off. You can't do this. You're going to have to learn to tackle. When he started destroying it and smashing all the records and City were, ploughing through the league, it was like, oh, well, you can only do it with, he can buy fullbacks. But hold on a minute. We had 2 fullbacks that were aging. Gael Clichy, Pablo Zabaleta, Kolarov. So we're not supposed to freshen the team up when you need to buy them. We bought Kyle Walker for 50 million. Now, Kyle Walker, you'd get 50 million for him now at 32. So it is what it is. People will always make something up to justify what they believe in. But at the end of the day, you take your team glasses off and you look at football overall and you've got to respect people. And Pep don't want that respect. He's not arsed, man. He's not arsed. City, I don't even want respect for him. If you've got your opinion on Pep and you think he's a checkbook manager, crack on. Same with Man City now. Everything we do will always be, there'll always be something we haven't done. Well, you haven't won 3 Prems in a row. You didn't win the Champions League, the fucking Carabao Cup, and a conquer match. There's always something that they'll throw at us. So we just keep rolling with it, keep having our days out, keep winning trophies, and one day it'll come to an end and we'll end up like Chelsea with fucking in a mess. But been there before. We'll just roll with it.
Yeah, listen, I totally get where you're coming from. I see it a lot when people sort of talk about, Fergie being overrated. I'm just like, listen, I lived his era. In fact, I was born into his era and lived his era. He wasn't overrated in the era and the time that he was in. He dominated English football, and there isn't a football person in the world that's just not in awe of him. And even Guardiola, if you turn around, I've heard Guardiola say, like, who's the greatest manager ever? I watched him in an interview and he just didn't hesitate to answer Alex Ferguson. Like he didn't even blink because for him, that would have been someone he grew up watching and idolized. Of course, the sort of the Barca sort of alumni he looks up to as well. And it just is what it is. So sometimes I sort of feel like I shouldn't be triggered by some people's opinions, but some are just mad. And often I just like to I kind of act a little more triggered than I am just to goad them out, to get into a debate, to watch them fall on their backside. And it's a lot of fun, really. Terry, thanks for bringing Steve. This is a true fan channel for all fans. Of course it is. And we'd have more people on if they wanted to come on. Just not everybody does. Everyone's welcome on the terrace within reason. You've got to show your face on camera, really, if you want to be on like a panel. But there we go. This is interesting. Off subject slightly. Opinions on Mourinho or Unai Emery replacing Potter?
Nah.
No.
Mourinho's not going back there. He's been there. He's not doing that. And Emery, no. That's just a knee-jerk reaction. It's mad. I've told you it's mad because, I just can't see it.
Do you know what I heard? What rumour I heard was the guy at Brighton, De Zerbi. And I just thought to myself, can you imagine they sack Potter and then bring the guy in that Potter...
Potter would probably go back there.
Yeah. Can you imagine? It was a weird one to me. When I saw that one, I thought if they do that, listen, it could work. But I saw it and thought to myself, that sounds like people that don't know what they're, like you get those neighbors that they copy the car of their neighbor. Everything the neighbor does, they copy. That's almost like going, right, well, we've got this one wrong. Brighton are doing well now without Potter, so let's get the guy in that did better than Potter. It's awful logic, I think. If they bring him in, that would be crazy. But in terms of the title race, kind of getting back to that, I think, look, it's going to be amazing this last 13 games. I think, how do you think Arsenal will do tonight? Do you think Arsenal will have more than enough to beat Everton, or do you think there could be a little sting in the towel here?
I mean, sometimes the home games, there's a bit of pressure on you because the fans are expecting it. So that can build. I mean, City in a couple of title runs have had home games where we should have won. Remember one against Sunderland, I think we were getting beat 2-1 and we naturally scored late on 2-2. That was a mad one. So it can work both ways. But I think the Everton game where they got beat was a bit too close to this one. So I think it's a bit fresh in a few players' minds. And I think they're going to want a bit of revenge. And I think if Arsenal start fast and swarm Everton early doors and nick one, it'll be game over. But listen, you can't rule out Sean Dyche. Everton are fighting for their lives. They've been under pressure. They brought Dyche in. They're looking a little bit more stable. Obviously, the training regime and that they've been going through has obviously increased. So if Everton go there and try and dig in, and I mean dig in, this is what I said to the Arsenal fans. It's all right blowing teams away in December. But when Everton turn up on a fucking Wednesday night and they're ready to dig in for a point, that's when you need to earn your crust. So part of me is hoping Everton dig in and nick a point. But being realistic, I think Arsenal's too much for them. I think they'll win that.
Yeah, listen, there could be some. I mean, if they mess this up tonight, this will. I think it could be. This is one of those moments where I feel like if they mess up tonight and only stay 2 points behind, it kind of undoes the last couple of games for them. But I think if they get the 5 points tonight, I think they're just going to have enough. I think they'll throw all their eggs into the Premier League. It will be a weakened side for their Europa League games, in my opinion. And they will just go hell for leather to win this Premier League from this point.
There's going to be some twists and turns coming up. United ain't out of it. They've got the tails up.
Do you think?
Nah, they're not out of it because sometimes it's better to be on the fringe and just keep plugging away and nobody talk about you. And then all of a sudden, when the other two slip, bang, you're in. So they're not out of it. They're playing well, and the whole club's just had a lift with the trophy they've got, and like you say, and everyone's buzzing at United right now, so they ain't out of it. Man City don't seem to be able to string a consistent run together, and Arsenal, they've been really consistent in what they're doing, but we've seen they can be got at. So listen, it's mad. I love it. It's football. I'm ready for it, man. I'm ready for it. We're ready on the blue side. Look, we'll go. We've won 4 out of 5. We're ready for it. You know what I mean? We're having it.
Listen, I'm so reluctant to say United are in it because by the time we kick off against Liverpool, Arsenal could be 14 points ahead of us. We would have 2 games in hand, but 14 points is...
City was 14 ahead of Liverpool last year, and they had 2 games in hand, and they got beat by.
I know. I just sort of feel like it isn't about putting pressure on the team per se. It's more just a case of like sham my ass. I just don't feel like we'll be able to turn that round. However, that's because I do think that City and Arsenal are just slightly more consistent than we are in the league. Therefore, if you've got a 5-point gap and they've got even if we win our games in hand, they've got a 9-point gap. It's still, we've got to show more consistency than the two of you, and you've both got to drop off. I do think, though, there's a chance that Man United come second if either you or Arsenal fall off from the title race with, say, 5 games to go. Almost a little bit like Tottenham back in 2016, where they were pushing Leicester, but as soon as they knew they couldn't win it, they just kind of lost and fell away. So I feel like we could maybe end up coming second, something along those lines. But I just feel like we're on the edge of it. Where my mind may change would be if Arsenal draw tonight and then lose at the weekend, and City lose at the weekend, and United beat Liverpool. Then I think the cat's really amongst the pigeons, because you both lost your opportunity to really take advantage of that. We'll have those games in hand, towels are up as you were. So it's going to take both of you to lose a couple of games while we're winning for me to really believe we could win it. But I think we're just on the edge. And I believe this Man United team, bit more investment next summer, we will challenge for the Premier League title, no doubt, next year. And if you win it, we have to win the league next year, because if you do 4 on the bounce, that's just a record that surpasses us. And I'm all about records and heritage and history. So yeah, listen, I'm all for it. I just think we're a little bit off the pace right now. But I think we'll win at least 2 trophies this year, though. I think we'll win the Europa League or the FA Cup. I really think we've got the ability to do that. I think we're good enough to do that. Of course, injuries pending and everything else. But listen, it's starting to heat up. And I feel like next year, Man United, Arsenal, City, all three teams going at it in the league it's going to be epic because the fan bases are so big and passionate. You know, City have got Guardiola and you know, and our kind of managers are sort of fresh to it in terms of the Premier League. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting next few seasons. There's no doubt about that, Steve.
Definitely, next season will be mad. Liverpool got to strengthen. United will. City will. Chelsea will. You know, Arsenal will. So it's not going to be easy next season. This is the season where there's a chance for someone to nick it. You know what I mean? There's a couple of teams fell off. So, you know, this is a big one. But let's get this one out of the way first before we think about that one.
No, listen, I totally agree. And listen, United, could they nick it? Yeah, as I say, if Arsenal and City go on a bit of a little poor run and we win those games. And I go back to the matches against Palace, those draws against Palace and Leeds, as I wasn't angry with not winning them. But I go back, add 4 more points to us now, stick us on 53 points, you know, just 2 behind you with a game in hand and just 4 behind Arsenal on the same games. I'd feel a lot more confident, but it's just a little bit too big a gap. But we'll see. As you say, there's been so many trials and tribulations and twists and turns this year already. Who knows? This here says, Steve, do you think Man City struggles are just Man City adapting to playing with the traditional number 9?
Yeah, we spoke about it before. You know, we've played with a false 9. We won the league a couple of times. We look great in that system. There comes a point where we have to change it. We've been crying out for an Aguero replacement, a superstar. We got Haaland in. Yeah, it takes time. Listen, these teams, you know, Liverpool for one, Chelsea one, are big drop-offs. We're still second in the title race. We're in the FA Cup. We're still in the Champions League. So we're doing okay. It's just down to Pep to find that winning formula and everyone's with him. You know what I mean? No one's panicking. We're just, when you're used to a certain consistency and that doesn't happen, then people get worried. But I'm not worried. You know, Erling's doing his job. We just got to find him a bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree. The great managers have had money, but Pep is scapegoated. So Alex Ferguson in the 90s had deals with Sky and Murdoch. He was buying up the English. They didn't have deals with Sky and Murdoch. Murdoch tried to buy Manchester United, and it was not allowed due to his connections with Sky. But yeah, that's not strictly true. But Fergie was criticised for being a checkbook manager, you know. And there was we put this up on the screen yesterday on mine and Lee's show. And this just goes to show things, right? And you got to remember, inflation's key here as well. But this shows all the money spent by clubs in the Premier League. So you've got teams like Tottenham that have spent 1.7 billion and won 3 trophies. And look, yes, City and Chelsea's money is a lot higher, but City, like that if you included inflation, you'd find that all of these teams have spent similar amounts of money to one another over the course of Premier League history. And Liverpool fans act like they never spend any money and they're poor. 1.9 billion they've spent. Like it's not insignificant amounts of money. It really isn't. It really isn't.
No, like I say, the different eras. United back in the day, they were massive, and there was no one around them at all. So really, to challenge them for that, you used to walk in, put a United shirt down on the table, and the play was yours. Whether somebody offered more money or not, they do what's called Man United at the time. It's changed a lot. Obviously, we know why. FFP, big owners coming in. It's changed now, but you've still got to give these managers credit. You can't just don't buy. You can't just buy a superstar team and it wins. It don't happen. You're looking at the Chelsea model now. United has spent 1.5 billion, not won a league. So it's like, that don't work. The argument's dead. It is what it is. The managers deserve credit.
Absolutely. And it's one of the reasons why when people say, oh, why'd you moan about the Glazers? You spent £1 billion since Fergie. I've never moaned that that's why I'm angry. Like it's almost like it's self-explanatory. We've spent that much money and we haven't won the league because we've got the wrong people at board level, the wrong recruitment, hired the wrong managers, pulled the rugs from under their feet, terrible decisions internally, terrible culture. The fact that gets ignored, that's why I defend Pep.
And it's what's gone. To be honest, United have underachieved in the last few years. We get that, but it's more concerning what's gone on off the pitch, the training ground, the Old Trafford, the academy sides, they've not nowhere been near a Man United level of what they should be. And as every other club has grown off the pitch and on it, they've sort of stood still and relied on the massive support and the global fan base. You'll always get that with United. But they should be millions miles away from where they are now, because what they've done is they've sat back and relied on that and thought, well, we'll always be Man United. They don't rely on fans changing teams, which happens. You know, other generations of fans coming through thinking, fucking hell, United's not won out for a few years. I'm not supporting them. You only have to look around Manchester. When I was a kid, United was everywhere. Bobby Charlton soccer schools in every school. All the best talent was at United. You go to Manchester now, every kid and every academy good side in Manchester is a Manchester City feeder club.
It's very true.
Everything's changed.
I
It's
never
just
met.
flipped on its head.
I grew up in London, so obviously London Red were always called glory hunters. I met more glory hunters when I moved to Manchester than I knew in London. The amount of people that were United fans, and you'd ask them questions about the club, and I had no idea what was going on, who the players were. I'm like, why United? Oh, because I'm from Manchester. I was like, no, because they're winning, right? That's you're still picking them for the same reason, because they were winning, and it's absolutely true. And I think that United. It's always funny. I did this thing when I was studying business around who won VHS or Betamax. I gave the answer Betamax won, and everyone's like, no, VHS did, and they didn't, because Betamax was owned by Sony, who licked their wounds, came back and developed Blu-ray, DVDs, and then Blu-ray. So and then were one of the first people that helped create the streaming world, where VHS died because it stopped innovating. And Man United under the Glazers were like VHS. They won the battle early on. They came in, they had Fergie and David Gill, and we managed to keep everybody away. Fergie and David Gill left, and the club stopped innovating, stopped changing. It didn't move with the times, and systematically more and more people left us behind. We were left in the doldrums. And then because we had money, because we got the legacy, we threw money at the problem, but we didn't fix, what you call the root cause issues. Like, why are we failing? And throwing money at it is great, but only if you're fixing the problems that are actually broken. And, thankfully, it looks like we're doing that now, but time will tell. Zach here says Todd will throw money at Simeone, in my opinion. I think Diego Simeone would be a wicked choice for Chelsea. Chelsea fans don't care about style of football. The guy is a winner. You probably won't get João Felix, but I think he'd be a good choice. Steve, do you think City need to move on from Ederson in goal?
Listen, Ederson's been fantastic for us. Massive part of what we do. Golden Glove winner 4 or 5 times. Brilliant goalkeeper. People get obsessed when Manchester City lose or they have a bad patch with throwing things at Ederson because all of a sudden he didn't save this or didn't save that. But, we played in Leipzig the other night and he saved our ass a few times. Nobody mentions it. No one's asked. All I'm going to say about Ederson is this. Ortega's come in as a number 2, and he's a very, very good goalkeeper. And finally now, Ederson has got pressure on him from Ortega. So if Ortega starts performing and Pep thinks he's doing better in training, he's a better fit than Ederson, and he becomes number 1, then I'm going to trust my manager. But for me, Ederson's probably the best goalkeeper we've ever had. And him and himself has revolutionised the Premier League with the passing out from the back and the things that he does. So people looking for a scapegoat at Man City, you know what I mean? We don't lose too many games these days, but when we do, they're always looking for someone to blame. But Ederson's definitely not to blame.
Yeah, listen, I think Ederson's a very good goalkeeper, and the problem that you have is that it's hard to it's hard to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Find better, if that makes sense. As much as he's got flaws, I'm a bit like it with David De Gea. A lot of people have got to find better. We've got to find better. We've got to find better. It's like, yeah, but you might find someone better with their feet. But is he going to make the saves that De Gea does? You got to balance these things out sometimes. For all of Ederson's mistakes, you're going to find someone who's as good with his feet as consistently that's enabled you guys to play your style of football. These things have got to be weighed up. Terry, who's England's most talented player, Foden or Bellingham? Of the two, I'm going to say Foden, and because Foden's doing it regularly in a harder league. Although I think Jude Bellingham's amazing, and I want him at Man United. By the way, I think on form, Phil Foden should be starting on the left over Jack Grealish as well. He's better, in my opinion. because he's got skills, tricks, and can progress the ball. But the man scores and assists as well. So yeah, for me, Phil Foden. Newcastle will also be up there in the Premier League next year. They may do. I still think they're a little bit behind. The one disadvantage Newcastle have compared to City and Chelsea when they had their big takeovers is that City had 3 years of it, and Chelsea had nearly a decade of no FFP, where they could invest what they wanted. Newcastle were still really restrained. I think they'll be top 6 next year, maybe top 7. Let's see what happens with that. But Betamax lost out to VHS. It took Sony about 30 years to surpass JVC. I swear the Betamax war ended in about 1988, and DVDs got released in 1997. So yes, it took them a little bit of time. I'm not saying the time difference between it, but even think about that. City's owners came in 2008 or 2009 and started to leave us like 5-6 years later. So it's happened quicker, but I'm talking about the principle, maybe not the timings there, smart cookie. Not so smart cookie, but thank you for the comment, my friend. Not every examples aren't going to be identical in terms of time spans, but I think everyone got what I meant. But there we go. Foden is not a winger for me. Can't compare to Saka. There's a lot of that. I just don't listen. Foden for me is better than Saka because he's delivered, done it regularly in a title-winning team. Saka, talent-wise, is every bit as good, but he's got to deliver and win trophies alongside it. I'm not going to yield from my principles on that because doing it in title-winning seasons, in title challenges, in run-ins, is where the real winners are made, in my opinion. Same as in boxing, same as in tennis. The guys that are digging out those results in, like Grand Slam finals or world title fights, they're the elite of the elite. I think Saka's going to do it, but he has to. We haven't seen it yet. When he does, then I'll put. Then that conversation becomes allowed for me. Not on ability. That's a different debate. But football isn't just about ability. It's about deliverance in difficult moments. It's why I will never put Harry Kane above Aguero, above Rooney, above Henry, above any of those elite guys who did it in title-winning seasons, because doing it in those, especially those last 10 games, doing it in cup finals, that is the difference, in my opinion. And I'll always stand by that, and I'll never hypocrisize myself, ever. I know you're going to pick Foden over Saka, but I think you probably think Saka's a good player because you're fair. It just is what it is.
No, I like him. I do like Saka. I do. I think he's great. Yeah, but same is. I don't like comparing everything. I mean, you're not going to meet an Arsenal fan that's going to tell you Phil Foden's better than Saka. Yeah. You're not going to meet a Man City fan that's going to go against Saka because Phil's, he's one of our own. So Foden's had a tough time recently. People were criticising him. He came out today and said he had a problem with his ankles after the World Cup, and he was playing in pain. The pain's now gone, and the last 2 games just looks totally different. He looks like he's got his, his mojo back, and he's come at the right time for us.
Yeah, no, listen, I think Phil Foden's great, and he for me is what I call a top class player. Good technique, good ability, delivers in big games, great outputs. He has everything. He's won. I think he got 4 Premier Leagues already.
Yeah.
Man's got, this is what I don't think people read. Man's got 4 Premier League titles at 22, 23 years of age. It's sensational, and you can't take it away. Terry, with that logic, Foden is better than Rashford. Yes. With that logic, like, again, I don't change my logic to win fights. The reason I think Ryan Giggs is Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes outweigh so many other players in the Premier League is because of their longevity and the trophies they won. Paul Scholes at nearly 40, Giggs at 40 were dominating teams winning Premier Leagues. I don't care that you find someone at their 28 years old, their peak was better. What were these men doing at 34, 35, 36, 37? These guys were dominating Premier Leagues. So I have to main for Rashford. Listen, again, this is what you got to remember here. Now, Sadiq, you're missing it. Why does everyone always miss this? I don't just look at ability. Just looking at ability isn't how you judge a footballer, because this isn't freestyle football. This isn't in the playground. This isn't keepy uppies. This is football, which is about winning trophies. Players that have delivered in title winning, Champions League winning, Premier League winning teams are better than players that haven't done that yet. Do you know why you don't know how? We don't know. That's why I take the Harry Kane. We don't know how Harry Kane would do in title. We don't know how he's going to perform in title races. Never been in one, really, in my opinion. Never been in one. How do we know what he's going to do? How do we know what Rashford's going to do when United are in a run-in for a title? We don't know. But what we've seen Phil Foden deliver in it, the most pressured games you could be in. Undo that logic and tell me why it's wrong, and I'll change my mind. But you've got to beat my logic. By your logic, Benjamin Mendy is better than Luke Shaw, and because he's won titles and World Cups after playing 12 games. See, again, but that isn't my logic. See, again, you're red square. You've watched this channel. Listen, not a fringe player. So I don't think Luke Chadwick is better than Steven Gerrard just because he's won trophies. I'm talking about Phil Foden, who is a regular, pivotal, important, and influential player, winning, scoring goals, creating goals, and winning games that led to a title. Not fringe players that have won trophies. That isn't the debate, my friend. Benjamin Mendy, for me, it wasn't integral in a City team, in my opinion. So I would put Luke Shaw above him. It wasn't integral in my view. However, if you're going to turn around and say Luke Shaw is better than Patrice Evra based on ability, I'm going to tell you no. Firstly, I think Evra's ability is better, but what Evra delivered and what he won puts him above Luke Shaw. Come on now. Tell me that what I'm saying is illogical is wrong. It's crazy for me. I'm not going to do it. That way, I'm just not. It's why I'm just not doing it. I'm not even having the debate. Like, the trophies matter, and being an important player in winning them, you can't ignore them, people. Surely. That basically means Arsenal fans are admitting that Harry Kane scored more goals than Henry in the Prem, therefore he's better than Henry. Doesn't mean that. It can't just be on stats. It can't just be on ability. It's got to be on stats, ability, and winning performances and winning titles. We can't ignore winning titles, surely, Steve.
No, it gets daft, doesn't it? Some people in the comments saying, yeah, but it's the team that Foden's in. Well, you've just answered your own question, because to get in that team, you have to be good. So at that age, to get in that team and win 4 Premier Leagues under Pep Guardiola, then that's just answered your question. So that's how good Phil Foden is.
It's a madness to me. Like, and I just don't. Again, I have my logic. I don't yield on it. If it means someone gets put above one of my players, that's it. But somebody's here saying Phil Foden was a bench player. It doesn't really count. Phil Foden played on average, 13 games in his first season, 26 games in his first season, 38 games in his second, 50 games in his third, 45 games in his fourth, and so far 32 games. So if you average that out, he's averaged about 40 games a season, and you're saying he's a bit part player. No, that's a first team regular. Like, come on now. And in that, he scored 57 goals and got about 40 assists. He's been integral. No, he's not Luke Chadwick. That's, by the way, like, it's crazy to me. If you take Foden out of City, they still win it. I mean, how far do you go with that, though? If you take a team as good as City, if you take one of their good players out, they may still win it. But what does that mean? So how far do you take that logic? They
took Aguero out. They took Aguero out of City, and we still won it. But
you won the league 1 year with that. Listen, I think Foden's. So again, if you don't think Foden was integral, that's your point. I think Foden was very integral, in my opinion. Who's the best player in Premier League history? I mean, Henry's up there. I know Ryan Giggs, no one likes talking about him because what's going on, but Ryan Giggs is there. Henry is there. Rooney, Aguero, David Silva, KDB, Paul Scholes, of course. There's so many.
That's a whole nother show. That's
a whole show. It's so hard because listen, again, I just don't do it. Dennis Bergkamp's on that list. Yaya Toure. I mean, I've got some obscure ones that I throw in there, like Michael Carrick. I just look at him. I think sensational and so integral to a team. Rio Ferdinand. There's so many. Lampard, Drogba. It's so hard to do. You are right on that one. Fair play. But if you ask every Premier League club who they pick between the two, I think Saka wins. It's if you put up a poll, loving the show, and that's fair enough. I can't control how everybody else views football, but I view it through a very specific lens, which is not just on ability. On ability and who I enjoy watching the most, I actually prefer watching Saka of the two, and I think Saka's great. But I don't yield on my principles of what I think brilliance is. The same as managers. I don't consider a manager in the great category until they've done back-to-back titles and won a Champions League. There's one anomaly in my life, and that's Carlo Ancelotti, because he's got 4 Champions Leagues. He's never done back-to-back league titles, but 4 Champions Leagues is enough. More than enough. Like, I have that rule. Until you've done back-to-back league titles in a big league and a Champions League, you don't qualify for greatness for me, because otherwise you're letting anybody in, and I just don't believe in it. And that's what, it's just my views. But there we go. Emil Heskey, that's a weird one. Emil Heskey, cult hero there. You might be biased. Well, I can't be biased if I have a logic that dictates ability, trophies, outputs, longevity. Because if you tick those boxes, I won't go against it. That my way stops bias attitudes. It literally stops it, in my opinion. But there we go. Spurs were in a title race in 2006, though. Yes, and we knew what happened in that. They didn't win it. So yeah, woo. Great shout. Steve, listen, I want to say a big thank you, bro. This is my favorite ones. Terry, what about Fabian Delph? No, yeah, one of the greatest midfielders of all time because he won a Prem. Yeah, there we go. Logic
left back. Played left back.
Left back as well. Logic is falling apart, but it isn't. No one's. Where's the debunking of my logic? At least debunk it before you say that, Grood, or whatever your name is. Listen, I appreciate you coming on, mate. Great show as ever. Always a good chat. Viewers, thank you very much indeed. Please make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to The Terrace and click the bell notification button as well, because the algorithm is not your friend. I think we only get like 14% of notification of people actually get recommended our videos these days. So make sure you've got the notifications turned on so you know when we go live or post new content. Steve, as I say, always a pleasure speaking to you, mate. Viewers, until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And I'll see you all